Imagine giving someone the key to your life, only for them to use it to lock you in a cage. We shared everything: late-night coffee, apartment keys, and the kind of secrets you only whisper when you think you've found your soulmate. I told Sloane about the one mistake that almost ruined my life years ago, thinking she was my vault. I was wrong. She wasn't a vault. She was a librarian, just waiting for the right moment to check out my trauma and put it on public display. The second I got the promotion she wanted, the best friend I knew vanished, and a monster took her place. Now I'm standing in the rain, watching her take my seat while the whole city looks at me like a criminal. But stay tuned, because when you burn someone's life down, you better make sure the wind doesn't blow the sparks back at your own house. The sun was shining through the glass walls of our high-rise office in the city. I remember the smell of expensive perfume and fresh coffee. Sloane and I stood by the window, looking down at the tiny cars below. We had just finished a huge sales quarter for our luxury marketing firm. My heart was full of joy because the CEO had hinted that a vice president position was opening up. Sloane turned to me with a wide smile and lifted her latte. "To us, Maya," she said. "The dream team." She reached into her bag and handed me a small, shiny box. Inside was a delicate gold friendship bracelet. As she clipped it onto my wrist, it felt like a sweet gesture, but looking back, it felt more like a shackle. I truly believed we were going to the top together. That evening, the city lights were glowing like diamonds. We went to a rooftop bar to celebrate our hard work. After 2 cocktails, I felt my guard drop. Sloane was leaning in, looking at me with such fake kindness in her eyes. I started talking about my childhood and how hard I had worked to get here. Then I told her my deepest secret. When I was 18, I made a terrible legal mistake back in my small town. It was a one-time thing, and the record was sealed, but it was the shadow that followed me everywhere. "I'm so scared the board will find out," I whispered. Sloane squeezed my hand and looked me right in the eye. "Your secret is safe with me, Maya. I am your vault." She was even recording the conversation on her phone, pretending to check a text. Monday morning felt different. The air in the office was thick with competition. The CEO, Mr. Sterling, called a meeting to officially announce the hunt for the new vice president. I could feel everyone's eyes on me because I had the highest sales numbers. I looked over at Sloane, expecting a supportive wink, but she was staring at the CEO with a hungry look I had never seen before. When the meeting ended, Mr. Sterling pulled me aside. "Maya, you are the frontrunner," he whispered. "Just keep this momentum going." I was glowing with pride as I walked back to my desk. I didn't realize that Sloane was standing just around the corner, hidden by a large office plant, overhearing every single word. The mask of the work bestie was starting to slip. A few days later, I woke up feeling terrible. My head was spinning and I felt a wave of personal crisis hitting me all at once. I was overwhelmed and vulnerable. I called Sloane because she was the only person I trusted. "I don't think I can come in today, Sloane. I feel like I'm falling apart," I told her. Instead of telling me to rest, she sounded unusually sweet. "Oh, Maya, you poor thing. You should take a mental health day. Turn off your phone and just sleep. I will tell Mr. Sterling you're sick and cover all your meetings. Don't worry about a thing." I thanked her, feeling so lucky to have her. I turned off my phone, tucked myself into bed, and fell into a deep sleep, completely unaware of the trap she was setting. While I was sleeping, Sloane was busy destroying my reputation. A very important international client arrived at the office for a surprise visit. Instead of calling me or covering the meeting professionally, Sloane sat down with them and Mr. Sterling. When they asked where I was, Sloane put on a worried face. "I'm so concerned about Maya," she told them loudly. "She's been very unreliable lately. She told me she's struggling with some substance issues from her past and couldn't face the day." Mr. Sterling looked shocked and disappointed. Sloane didn't stop there. She hinted that my legal troubles were starting to affect my focus. She wasn't just missing my meetings, she was actively telling the people in charge that I was a dangerous liability to the firm. The next morning, I walked into the office feeling much better, but the atmosphere was ice cold. People who usually said hello suddenly looked away when I passed. I was confused and my stomach did a nervous flip. Before I could even sit down, my computer login wouldn't work. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email from Human Resources. "Maya, please come to the conference room immediately." When I walked in, the HR director and Mr. Sterling were sitting there with stony faces. They started asking me very specific questions about my past, things that were sealed and private. They asked about my instability and reliability. I froze. Only one person knew those details. I looked through the glass wall and saw Sloane sitting at her desk, calmly typing away as if nothing was wrong. That night was the annual company gala, a black tie event at a luxury hotel. I thought I could still fix things if I showed up and talked to the board. I wore my best black dress, my heart pounding against my ribs. During the middle of the CEO's speech, a slideshow began to play on the giant screens. It was supposed to be a highlight of our successful year. Suddenly, the images changed. A scanned copy of my private, sealed legal records from 10 years ago flashed on the screen for everyone to see. Then an audio clip played over the speakers. It was me, crying at the bar, talking about my secret. Sloane had accidentally projected my private life to the entire industry. The room went silent. Every eye in the room turned to me with judgment and disgust. I felt like I was moving in slow motion. The noise in the room became a dull roar. I looked toward the stage and saw Sloane standing near the laptop. She covered her mouth with her hand, pretending to be shocked, but her eyes were sparkling with victory. Mr. Sterling walked over to me, his face red with anger. "Maya, we have a morality clause in your contract. This is a disgrace to the firm. Security will escort you out." Every friend I thought I had in that room stayed silent. They pulled back as if I had a disease. Security grabbed my arms and led me toward the exit. As the heavy gold doors shut behind me, I caught one last glimpse of Sloane. She was already walking toward Mr. Sterling, ready to take my place. The next few days were a blur of pain, because my apartment was subsidized by the company. I was given 48 hours to pack. I stood in the rain as movers took my furniture. Sloane didn't even call to apologize. Instead, she watched from her balcony across the street, sipping a glass of expensive wine. I went back to the office one last time to clear out my personal desk drawer under the watchful eye of a guard. As I pulled out a stack of old files, something heavy fell to the floor. It was a silver flash drive. I recognized the keychain. It belonged to Sloane. She must have dropped it when she was helping me pack my things earlier. I tucked it into my pocket, not knowing that this small piece of metal was about to change everything. I moved into a tiny, cramped studio apartment on the edge of the city. It smelled like old dust and broken dreams. I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, feeling completely defeated. I realized Sloane had planned every detail. She had even signed my lease termination as a favor to the company to make sure I had nowhere to go. I felt so stupid for trusting her. My career was over, and I was blacklisted. I looked at the silver flash drive sitting on the floor. Part of me wanted to throw it away, but another part was curious. I put on my coat and walked to the public library. I needed to see what Sloane was so busy working on while she was supposed to be being my friend. In the quiet library, I plugged the flash drive into a computer. My heart skipped a beat as the files loaded. There was a folder titled Miscellaneous. When I clicked it, I didn't find marketing plans. Instead, I found Sloane's digital burn book. It was filled with screenshots, recorded calls, and private emails belonging to almost everyone in the firm. She had dirt on every executive, including Mr. Sterling. But then, I found a subfolder with my own name on it. Inside were logs dating back over a year. She had been tracking my every move, my every mistake, and my every secret. She hadn't just betrayed me in a moment of greed. She had been hunting me since the day we met. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. As I scrolled through the logs, I saw how deep her sickness went. She had staged events to make me look bad long before the promotion was even announced. She had sent anonymous tips to clients and deleted my emails so I would miss deadlines. A notification popped up on the library computer as I opened my social media. Sloane had just posted a photo of herself sitting in my old office chair. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Finally in the seat I deserve." She was wearing the gold friendship bracelet she gave me. She looked so perfect and polished, but I now knew the truth. She was a thief who stole lives. I realized then that I couldn't just cry. I had to fight back using her own rules. I knew I couldn't get a marketing job anymore, so I took a job at a local coffee shop right around the corner from our old office building. It was humiliating at first. I had to wear a green apron and scrub floors while my former coworkers walked in. But I needed to be a ghost. I needed to watch Sloane's daily routine. Every morning at 8:45 a.m., Sloane would walk in with her head held high. One morning, she came in with Mr. Sterling. They were laughing loudly. "I'm so glad we finally got rid of that cleaning lady, Maya," Sloane said, loud enough for me to hear. She didn't even recognize me behind my mask and hat. She saw me as invisible, which was exactly what I wanted. One afternoon during my break, I sat in the park across from the office. I saw Sloane's new assistant, a young woman named Chloe, sitting on a bench. She was crying into her hands. I watched Sloane walk out of the building, bark a few orders at the poor girl, and then stomp away in her expensive heels. Chloe looked exactly how I felt a month ago, broken and terrified. Sloane was already starting the cycle of abuse with her next victim. I realized that if I wanted to take Sloane down, I couldn't do it alone. I walked over to the bench and handed Chloe a tissue. She looked up, startled. "I know exactly who you're working for," I said softly, "and I know how to make her stop." Chloe and I started meeting in secret after work. At first, she was scared, but then she started talking. She told me that Sloane was forcing her to sign off on massive fraudulent expense reports. Sloane was claiming thousands of dollars for luxury gifts for international clients that didn't actually exist. Chloe showed me copies of the receipts. My eyes widened as I looked at the dates. The gifts were actually payments made to a private investigator, the same one Sloane used to dig up my sealed legal records. Sloane was using the company's own money to fund her war against me. She was embezzling funds and framing it as business expenses. This was the final piece of the puzzle I needed to destroy her. I didn't go to the police right away. I wanted Sloane to feel the same slow, creeping paranoia she had forced on me. I started by sending anonymous emails to the board of directors. I didn't make any accusations. I simply sent reminders about missing receipts for the luxury gift fund. I knew the office culture was built on fear, and once the board started asking questions, Sloane would start to crumble. Within a week, Chloe told me the atmosphere in the office had turned toxic. Sloane was screaming at everyone, accusing the IT department of spying on her. She was losing her cool, and her polished socialite mask was cracking for everyone to see. She was finally becoming the unstable person she claimed I was. I decided to take it a step further. I remembered that Sloane was incredibly lazy with technology. She had never changed the shared password for our old client portal. I logged in from a burner laptop at the coffee shop. It was 10 minutes before Sloane was set to give a major presentation to the board of directors about the company's future. I accessed her slides remotely. I didn't delete them. I simply added 3 new slides at the very end. These slides contained the scanned receipts for the gifts and the name of the private investigator. I logged out and sat back, watching the office building from across the street. I could almost hear the clock ticking down to her total destruction. The meeting must have been a disaster. An hour later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and Sloane's voice came through, sounding absolutely unhinged. She was screaming so loud I had to move the phone away from my ear. "I know it's you, Maya. You're a pathetic coffee girl. You have nothing. I will ruin you again." She was panting, her voice cracking with rage. I didn't say a single word. I simply pressed record on my phone. I let her scream until she ran out of breath. "I'm going to make sure you never work in this town again," she shrieked before hanging up. I looked at the recording. She had just admitted to her obsession with me on tape. I decided to give Sloane one last chance to show her true colors. I sent her a text from a new number, asking to meet in the public park where we used to have lunch. When I arrived, I made sure to look broken. I wore an old sweater and acted like I was desperate. "Sloane, please," I begged. "I have no money. I'm losing everything. Just tell the board the truth so I can work again." Sloane laughed, a cold, sharp sound. She leaned in close, her face full of malice. "Why would I do that?" "I loved destroying you, Maya. It was so easy. And yes, I used the company's money to do it. What are you going to do? You're a nobody." She didn't see the tiny microphone pinned to my collar. The following night was the firm's 20-year anniversary gala. It was the biggest event of the year, and Sloane was supposed to receive the Employee of the Year award. She had invited the entire city's elite to watch her moment of glory. I knew I couldn't just walk in, so I called the firm's biggest rival, a man Sloane had insulted months ago. I told him I had a story he'd love to hear. He was more than happy to have me as his +1. I arrived at the gala looking better than I ever had. I wasn't the scared girl in the rain anymore. I was the storm. When I walked through those gold doors, the room went silent for a different reason. During the cocktail hour, I followed Sloane into the powder room. She was fixing her lipstick in the mirror, looking triumphant. When she saw me in the reflection, she spun around, her eyes wide with fury. "How did you get in here? Security," she hissed. I stood my ground, my heart steady. "You think you won because you have a title, Sloane, but you have nothing. I have the one thing you can't buy, the truth." Sloane stepped closer, her voice a low growl. "Nobody believes a criminal like you." I just smiled at her. Suddenly, the door to one of the stalls opened. Mr. Sterling walked out, holding his phone. He had heard every word of our private conversation. His face was white with shock. The award ceremony was supposed to start at 9:00 p.m. Sloane stood on the stage, waiting for her name to be called. The room was full of the most powerful people in the city. Mr. Sterling walked up to the microphone, but he didn't have a trophy. He had a manila envelope. "Before we give out the award," he said, his voice trembling with anger, "we have some new information regarding our luxury gift fund." He looked directly at Sloane. "Sloane, please step down. The firm's legal team would like to speak with you in the lobby." The crowd began to whisper. Sloane's face turned a strange shade of gray. She tried to laugh it off, but security was already walking up the stairs toward her. As security led Sloane off the stage, the giant screens behind her flickered to life. It wasn't the anniversary video. It was the recording of Sloane in the park, admitting that she loved destroying me and using the company's money to do it. Her own voice filled the ballroom, loud and clear. "It was so easy," her voice echoed. The socialite was exposed as a thief and a fraud in front of everyone who mattered to her. She looked around the room, searching for a friendly face, but everyone was looking at her with the same disgust they once felt for me. I stood at the back of the room, a glass of water in my hand, finally feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. The fallout was massive. Sloane was arrested for embezzlement and corporate fraud. The board of directors was embarrassed and desperate to fix their image. The next morning, Mr. Sterling called me into his office. He offered me my job back, a vice president title, and a massive financial settlement to keep me from suing the firm. I looked at the office I had worked so hard for. I looked at the seat Sloane had stolen. Then I looked at Mr. Sterling. "I don't want a seat at your table," I said firmly. "You all watched her destroy me and said nothing. I'm building my own table." I walked out of that building for the last time, feeling truly free. A few months later, I was walking to my new office. I had started my own boutique agency with Chloe as my partner. As I passed a bus stop, I saw a woman sitting on the bench. She was wearing a tattered coat and her hair was a mess. It was Sloane. She was waiting for a bus, looking exactly like the nobody she had mocked me for being. She looked up and saw me, but I didn't stop. I realized that success built on someone else's grave is just a temporary lease. I had survived my past, and that made me the most dangerous person in the room. I looked ahead at my future, knowing that the truth always finds its way home. What lesson did you take from my story?